Hello, and welcome to the Fade Route NFL podcast. We're finally back. We are doing a summer show. We'll be doing more shows. We'll talk about that later. We're going to do Faded Takes, which is a new segment for us. We're going to talk about least memorable Super Bowls, some of the draft offseason stuff, and a bunch more things. But before we do anything else, we want to welcome in the mayor. Mayor, how are you?
I am pretty good, Professor. Still licking my wounds, I guess, from watching your rival football team win the Super
Mm,
Bowl in your very home stadium. It is
mm,
tragic
mm,
for 49er fans everywhere. And even more tragic, it looks like a partial owner of the 49ers is set to buy part of the Seattle Seahawks. Imagine winning a Super Bowl and then selling your team. What a best way to go out. I mean, the new owners, get to have a Lombardi Trophy for nothing, maybe $9 billion, but that's beside the point. AI does say I derail our podcast too often, so I'll try not to. I'll tip it back to you.
Yeah, well, we haven't done a post Super Bowl show this year. I just realized we haven't really talked about that, but I guess you did get a chance to talk about the frustrations involved with having all that happen. All right, yeah. So we're gonna do something new called Faded Takes, and let me explain a little bit of because this is the first time. The idea here is we often get to takes after they're very cold. Um, we don't do shows right after the games are done or anything like that. We may do that at some point, but right now we don't. So by the time we get to it, there's been so many takes. So our own spin on doing new takes is faded takes. So these are ideas, could be football related, could be unrelated to football, ideas that might occur to us at different times during the day. So we'll see how this goes. You want to start with your faded take, or should I just go with mine?
Well, when you said faded takes, I didn't really follow up with any questions, so
Oh,
I don't
okay.
quite have the faded take that you thought maybe we were had. I would have had.
I feel like I feel like you have a faded take once a show before we even do that.
that
All
that's
right.
very possible. But go ahead.
No, it's listen, I'll give the example so that it's a little more clear. So my faded take, the example that I want to throw out there is uh, something that's not possible, but yet would be really cool. A land cruise ship that would travel the United States to every football stadium, similar to there's a guy on YouTube. I wish I could give him credit, but he like breaks into various college stadiums. I don't know if you've seen that, Mayor. There's a guy who finds back entrances into major college football stadiums and sneaks in and gets as far as he can. Have you ever seen that?
No, that does sound fascinating. Maybe I want to give that a try myself. Now that I've seen it on the internet.
Yeah. We don't promote other YouTube shows here, but I do recommend if you can find that one. That one is cool. Sometimes he makes it up to like the executive suites and stuff. It's amazing. All right. So my take is, what if there was, imagine a giant cruise ship. I'm not talking about a tour bus. I'm talking about a giant cruise ship that you sail to the islands on. What if that could go on land or maybe like floating? It feels like we're five years away from flying cruise ships. Um, what if that could go to different stadiums? You could do, the East Coast, or you could do, even just Florida. You could do the whole nation. I mean, this is just not something that's possible, but it's something that would be really cool.
As long as those stops don't involve Philadelphia, I think we should be fine. You probably can't be anything but a Philadelphia Eagles fan while in Philadelphia. I feel like you can go into other places and be safe other than there. I love the idea. It doesn't sound like it would be something that anyone other than one Elon Musk could afford. But I mean,
Mm.
that good for him. And if it was something, it would definitely be on my bucket list to try to visit every NFL stadium, and that trip would definitely do it. I do like your faded take. When I come up with one
W-
or have one or recall one, I will inject it into the podcast at my so pleasing.
Again, doesn't have to be football related. Fun if it is. But here's the thing: we shouldn't be putting all this money into Mars. Like, what if we just use our technology to make it easier to get around this planet a little bit?
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, even maybe missions to the moon seem obsolete at this point because there's nothing we can gain in the next 200 years that would possibly help us. I think the only thing
Right.
we really need to go in outer space for is to possibly detour any asteroid and or cosmic dust that comes at us. But NASA has already has all that tracked. So I mean, other than spending money on protecting the world from the universe, would be the only purpose of NASA at this point.
All right. See, the idea of a faded take is maybe we provoke some interesting conversations. I'm sure as we progress throughout the season, we will get some interesting conversations out of that. I wanted to talk about the least memorable Super Bowls. Um, this is something that is um, inspired by the last Super Bowl, Super Bowl 60. Um, I included it on my list.
Sorry,
That's all
we're a
right.
live show. Go ahead.
That's all right. This is inspired by Super Bowl 60, which just happened for me is one of the least memorable Super Bowls of the last 20 years. I picked a couple other ones that were not very memorable to me. And I based that on I don't remember exactly where I was. I couldn't tell you one specific play that happened in these games. So, what do you think about Super Bowl 60 in 10 years? Are you going to remember this one?
The wound of Seattle winning that Super Bowl will probably always be with me. But ironically, one of the most Super Bowls I can't remember is when the Rams only scored 3 points against New England, who only scored 13. I don't remember that happening, maybe because the Rams lost, but a 13-3 Super Bowl. I imagine the snacks were plentiful and the beer was good, but I don't specifically even remember who played in that Super Bowl.
Right. I had that one on my list. Super Bowl 53, New England 13, the Rams 3. I have a little bit of an excuse why I don't remember that one. Besides, it was obviously like watching paint dry. My son was born in January of 2019, so he was like a month old when the Super Bowl happened. I probably wasn't paying too much attention.
That would be logical.
Yeah. The other one I had, I think, is kind of weird because I think it was a pretty good game. But I had Super Bowl 45, which is Green Bay 31, Pittsburgh 25. I just don't have a memory of that game.
Yeah, you're right. I don't remember much about that.
I I know I was teaching and I was also in grad school. A lot was going on, but I don't know why I don't remember it. Some of these I can remember exactly where I was when I watched it, but I guess if I watched it at home, that would kind of blend into everything else that I did. You have any non-memorable Super Bowls
Yeah,
besides the one you mentioned? And
that one was pretty bad. And then I mean, going all the way back to I mean, even like 2000. When the
mm,
Giants
mm,
played the Ravens and the Ravens defense.
mm,
I think Trent Dilfer that whole season threw 2 touchdowns. But the only memorable thing for me was that Super Bowl was in Tampa, and I was living in Tampa at the time. But that's about all I remember about the game.
yeah. I that to me, like the way that it's unmemorable is I can't remember a play from it. Most Super Bowls have one play that you watch it and you go, "Oh yeah, that's Super Bowl." But for some reason, there's a couple of them. Do you remember any specific play from Super Bowl 60 this year?
No, not one.
There you go. I think the most memorable thing was Drake May throwing a deep pass when basically the game was over, but they had one last shot at it that they connected. It looked like they maybe had some kind of hint of a possibility that they could get back into the game. But this was like mid third quarter or whatever, and that's a crazy stupid play to remember. It's just a random deep pass that actually connected. Not a memorable one, and in 10 years, I probably won't remember it at all.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
All right, we are going to talk draft offseason moves, but before I do anything with that, we're going to take a short break. All right, draft offseason moves. Since we did not cover the draft at all, I don't think we did a preview or a post view of the draft, if I'm remembering correctly this year. So we actually have a little bit of draft to talk about. Sometimes the draft shows can kind of drag on, so this is a good time to just catch us up a little bit. I was only going to really bring up Mendoza to the Raiders, and the question there being, does he actually sit the whole season? As Tom Brady in the past has insinuated is a really good idea, and of course Tom Brady involved with ownership with the Raiders. But are they really gonna? Are you really gonna want to watch Kirk Cousins go 6-11? Um, so, what are your thoughts on that? Mendoza starting or not?
The, there's almost no reason not to start him at one point. Maybe not immediately, but even then, Kirk Cousins isn't the future. I mean, let him go out there. As long as his offensive line cannot get him knocked down 100 times a game, there'd be no reason to let him start early. Literally, let him learn by failures and learn by luck and learn by just being there. But he might not be physically ready or mentally ready for that position. But when you're drafting a rookie quarterback, sometimes it's that work in progress. I don't see him not playing the whole season, regardless of who what one of the owners thinks or doesn't think, or who that person may be.
Yeah.
I see him starting by midway season, I would imagine.
Yeah, I don't think you can draft a quarterback number one overall and he's healthy and you just sit him for the entire first season of his career. Don't think you can do that.
Yeah,
Um, so I put the over under at 6.5. Do you think he's going to start 6 games or do you think it'll be more?
yeah,
I
that sounds
mean,
about right.
yes, 6 games
That
or
sounds
more.
about right.
I mean, the question is okay, what if the Raiders are like 5-2?
Well,
They'd probably have to stick with Cousins, assuming that,
yeah,
the
if
offense is
they're on
working.
a winning record and are still having a chance to run down the division, then you got to go with what's already working. Uh, we'll see. That's a good point.
But yeah, that would be the only case. Neither of us thinks the Raiders is going to be a winning organization this year. I'm
Yeah,
sure. We'll get to that a little bit
that
later.
could be its own fated take.
Yeah. um. Yeah. Raiders to the Super Bowl. That is a really faded take.
Well, it is
Do
in
you have
Las
any
Vegas,
other
right?
thoughts on the draft?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so Raiders will be at the Super Bowl, but they might not be in the Super Bowl.
True. Can you put money on that?
What?
Does Polly Market have a bet that the Raiders will be at the Super Bowl?
I'm sure.
All right, I gotta check that out. See what odds we can get on them attending the Super Bowl. Okay, you have any other thoughts about the draft?
I don't get too hyped up with who's taking who or even off-season moves. There's always a team that has a lot of hype, based on the transactions. The Browns got rid of Miles Garrett and got a bunch of draft equity for the future. The Rams are getting a player in Miles Garrett who's aged and might get Sam Darnold back. They did a lot of draft moves, but is it going to help? We won't know. I mean, injuries can just plague a team. I do like the way the teams that didn't do great last year, really cleared their cleared all their vets out and got them out of the way where they can really truly redevelop. And even Miami has completely reset. Cleveland's completely reset. They're building for the future yet again. Maybe it'll work out in their favor this time. But these top playoff teams last year didn't go away. They didn't lose their team. So barring any injuries, they're going to be top contending teams in December and January this coming year. So I don't think anyone did significant enough to just move them to the front of the line.
Sure. So, but specifically, let's talk about the Niners because I'm sure you're following their offseason a bit. What do you think? So, Ayuk, question mark, probably not with the Niners.
Yeah, no, there's
Um,
no way he's playing again. I think the signing of Evans kind of dictates that. And they got Trent Williams to re-sign for a few years, but
right.
he's a 12-year player with a lot of injuries under him, and he was out for half the season last year. And when he's not in the football game, that team plays differently. When Nick Bosa, who can't stay healthy, isn't in the football game, they play differently. Fred Warner, same thing. If for some streak of luck, all three of them, including Kittle, can stay healthy, I don't think the 49ers have lost many football games when all four of them have been present and able. I'd have to go back and really look and see, but they're when they're injury free, they've been really good. But that's a whole other season away. Everybody's older, so I mean, again, it still comes down to injury and can you sustain that?
Well, and so Ayuk definitely not coming back to the 49ers, but they also lost Juwan Jennings to Minnesota. And I know he's not a number one receiver, but he's a pretty good two or three when he's healthy. And then, of course, Kittle has to be healthy. So right now, Mike Evans and Christian Kirk I think, are your 1, 2 receivers
Yeah, I mean,
besides Kittle.
well, let's not undervalue Christian McCaffrey quite yet. But Shanahan has always found a way to find those mid-tier wide receivers become successful in his offense. So I'm sure he's got a few. I'm sure they've got a few players on their team that they're in the development stages of with those run pass concepts that they like to run and execute. And I don't think they'll have an issue there offensively if they can keep Kittle and Trent Williams in the game.
All right, let you just mention Miles Garrett. I was gonna go down the maybe 10 or so offseason moves that I think are gonna impact the season the most. Just to get this out of the way, we have a couple of coaching moves. In addition to Clint Kubiak with the Raiders and some other moves, I think John Harbaugh to the Giants and Mike McCarthy to the Steelers probably the two biggest coaching moves. Mike McCarthy reunited with Aaron Rodgers, of course. Kind of a strange story, to be honest with you. Do you have any thoughts on either John Harbaugh or Mike McCarthy this year?
It's amazing that these Super Bowl winning coaches get tossed around like they were once the best thing in the organization, and now they're getting thrown out for something else. It's almost like an ego check thing for some of these upper level management guys that want it to be them and not whichever. Sometimes the coach loses the voice, but at the same time, how does that happen if John Harbaugh is the voice in the room? They've done great many, many years, but again, it comes back to doing just a couple bad breaks don't go your way, and then all of a sudden you're coaching for the New York Football Giants. I don't think he's going to have
Yeah.
as big of an impact in New York as Michael McCarthy could have in Pittsburgh, but I think Pittsburgh's got a better, well-rounded team at the moment than the Giants have. So I think that he's going to have maybe more short-term success.
Yeah, definitely. Mike McCarthy, a very different presence in that locker room, I'm sure. So we'll see what difference that makes ultimately. All right, I was going to talk about some of the players. Miles Garrett to the Rams. I mean, he did break the NFL sack record last year, so I don't think they're getting like a guy necessarily yet on the downturn. Probably still has a season or two in him that could be very elite. And then AJ Brown to the Patriots. They have their true number one receiver. Thoughts on AJ Brown?
Yeah, let's see what happens. I do like to move for for Drake May and the Patriots. That's probably where they were lacking last season. The one or two holes that they had. Um, but the team, keep rebuilding. I think that's going to help that offense out. They probably need to stay as consistent at the running game, but one wide receiver is not going to be able to do it. They're going to need another pair of hands in there somewhere, but that's definitely a big improvement for them.
Yeah, it was a good move for the Patriots, obviously. All right, then Kenneth Walker to the Chiefs. That could actually make a huge difference. I think they've Chiefs have never really in the Mahomes era had a great running back. And Kenneth Walker, I don't know about great, but he's probably the best they've had in the past 10 years or so. Do you have any thoughts on Kenneth Walker to the Chiefs?
Yeah, I like the move. Kansas City, is keeping up with their still pretty damn good quarterback in Patrick Mahomes. Their other wide receivers they've been having kind of issues with. Never really a consistent person on that team other than one other than Travis Swift, I think is his name. He's recently married, but you know they're they're going to be ready. Andy Reid's going to have that team ready, and gave another weapon to Patrick Mahomes, who is still looking to stay at elite level status. Whether they play in Kansas City, Missouri, or Kansas City, Kansas, they're going to be ready to go.
Yeah, I think it's obviously a good move for them too. It's interesting to see what the Seattle Seahawks do because I think he was very integral to that offense actually working, especially in the playoffs. There, he kind of carried the team a little bit. Kyler Murray went to the Vikings. I mean, they did get Juwan Jennings, and they have Justin Jefferson. They got a team. But I don't know. Does this excite you at all, Kyler Murray to the Vikings?
No, I mean Justin Jefferson can't throw himself the ball. He sure as heck is one great wide receiver, but I don't understand. They need something. He's not it. We'll see. Maybe he can prove us wrong, but he had quite the weapons around him for a few years, and in a pretty hot offensive coordinator turned head coach at the time, and they weren't able to do anything because he seemed to be the problem according to all the rumors. So unfortunately for Minnesota, they're going to have to figure that out.
Yeah, if the coach there wasn't considered a QB guru, then I don't think that Kyler Murray would this would matter at all. But to me it's a little bit interesting for that reason to see what Kyler Murray could be, and maybe he's going to hit the ceiling as a quarterback. Maybe he's kind of done as a runner, but not done, but not going to get any better as a runner going forward. He's on the decline, because of his age. I don't know, he's 30 ish. And then I have a feeling that he's going to, as long as he's healthy, play the whole season. But GTA 6 is coming out.
Yes, it is. I am excited for that. But yes, come November, if they're not in, they're going to be
So,
out.
yeah. Then two more. Dexter Lawrence leaves the Giants, goes to the Bengals. Um, I mean, I know it's not the biggest thing in dealing. It's probably worse for the Giants than it is a plus for the Bengals right now. But you have any thoughts on that one?
No, not enough to get excited about. I think again the Giants are kind of clearing clearing a lot of their team out and moving new players in, which is surprising. Having the coach they have, it seems like John Harbaugh doesn't have many years left to get it done, but not an impressive move by the Bengals. I think there's still a few pieces away too. But
Yeah, and they lost Trey Hendrickson, so that it's kind of like, all right, great defensive player, but let's get rid of one and get the other. I don't know. Then Trent McDuffie also to the Rams, so obviously beefing up that defense. I think Miles Garrett and Trent McDuffie, they're obviously going heavy on the defense, making moves there. So we don't need to talk about the Rams anymore, but I just thought that was an interesting move that clearly shows the direction they think they need to go this season.
yeah,
Anything else on player movement or the draft or anything like that?
no, I think we're ready to move on that part. I think that's pretty much covers it. I mean, anyone kind of listens to the podcast over and over again knows we're more about our daily games and live season action more than off season, where you can
Yeah,
find the information in limitless places and get anyone
yeah,
else's take on the matter.
yeah, I agree. Looking forward to the season, of course, but also we have our annual all-team records and division winners, our predictions for everything, including the Super Bowl at the end. We're gonna start with the North divisions, if that's all right with you.
Yeah,
All right, so our next episode will be on the North divisions, and we also have NFL bets. Of course, we're going to get into that closer to the season, closer to week one. And we have Sink or Swim, which, is for those who have not heard of this before, it's kind of like a survivor pool contest between the mayor and I. And we have a game called Scratch and Sniff that we really need to fix. I think there's a really simple fix, but we should probably hash that out. My idea has always been we probably do have to move to it being um, negative points. So if you pick Chicago in week one, which is normally worth, you would be somebody
yeah,
you're
18
you're
points.
adding to, you're gonna lose those points. So you have to be very, very sure. Like they'll be negative instead of just
Right.
wiped out.
Yeah. And I think we need to cap the picks at maybe three. Just because it just seems like I don't know.
I think we did that last year, but there may have been we maybe didn't make it such a solid rule, and there may have been some weeks where I picked more than three. But I think that was something we tried to make a part of it last year. But I think maybe we could even cap it at two,
Or
with them being worth.
or how about
Oh,
one
go ahead.
NFC team, one AFC team a week?
That was another thing we talked about. Do you want to make all those changes? I mean, I'm fine with that. But so you can make zero picks, or you can make two,
Well, I
maybe.
mean, if you think about it, 18 weeks, there's 14 teams that make the playoffs. So if we knock the team out each week, theoretically, by week 18, there's only 14 teams left.
Yeah,
So,
that's
yeah.
why it would work so well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like that, and I like the negative point concept.
yeah. Because then you have to, actually put something out there. It's like gambling on who you think is gonna get knocked out
And
early.
how
So
about like you always pick the AFC team first, and I always pick the NFC team first? I guess it doesn't matter because if we pick the same team, there's no consequence to that because we're not always going to match,
right.
especially in the first couple of weeks. I mean, we can probably already pencil in, the Cincinnati Bengals as a non-contender, not to throw them under the bus, but Or
I
a team
think
like the
you
Miami
forgot the
Dolphins,
Dolphins.
they would be another one that is probably going to be within the first couple of weeks that I'm picking them.
Uh,
So
that was a low blow. I mean, coming from me, I think it would be okay, but coming from you, that's a tough one.
yeah, well, I'm honest, and I want our viewers to take my take seriously, and I want them to make some money with my solid advice.
All right, so yeah, we covered everything. I think that's it. Unless you have something in addition, we're gonna do a little short show today, and then we'll break into our divisional predictions in probably 2 weeks.
So we're looking 2 weeks out because is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, so we need, I think, four. So it'd be four of the divisional shows, and then it would be one for week one before the season starts.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so basically the month of August. So yeah, we're right there. Minus. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So um, for the mayor and myself, thank you for listening to the Fade Route podcast. We'll be back talking to you in about 2 weeks.